Cool. Okay, so I mean, that's a science and it's pretty heavy. And once you've got your group in the know that it's urgent, we suggest in the conversation that you take a pause and do an emotional check-in. So I'm going to hand it over to Rosemary to do one of those with us now.
Thank you very much, Colleen. Yeah, so I find that sometimes we end up having a lot of anxiety about this sort of thing, and sometimes that even turns people off. They don't want to know more. I know that with my own family members. They're afraid to ask me questions about climate because they're afraid to hear the answers. So that's why I think it's really important that we ground ourselves after you get hit with all this information. So we're going to just do this little exercise together. The first question, we have two sharing questions. What are your feelings about the impacts of the climate crisis? What are your concerns, your fears, your hopes? And in the actual, when we actually do the climate, kitchen table climate conversations, we'd start with a quiet time of 1 or 2 minutes for personal reflection. You could take notes of your feelings if you want, and then either type into the chat or read out loud to the group. So are we going to take a minute to just model that, Colleen? Yeah, okay. So we'll do it a little briefer, I guess, but just take a few minutes to come up with 1 or 2 points about your feelings when it comes to all this information.
I'll model an example just for people, but yeah, I get when I do this for people, sometimes I get my anxiety builds as well, partly because I don't get to talk about it enough and people don't really want to hear about it. So then, you know, when I get a chance to talk about it, it's for some reason, even though it's a relief, the anxiety also rises because I think of how often I don't talk about it. So that's, you know, that's partly what happens.
Hi, Colleen. So a couple shares from the group. So Yun Chun Chan says, I feel very uncomfortable to see the injustice. And she also feels sad and depressed. Jay has written, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. So it's important to be connected to groups being proactive in climate work, like Climate Fast, and also to do something to push back against the abyss. And then Rosemary would like to share, and then after that, Tanya would like to share.
Thank you. I feel these days, I feel frustrated more than anything else because I feel like we've been talking about this forever. And some people are getting it, but some people just still don't understand the depth to it, that it's not like, okay, we're going to walk with a poster and a placard and then 3 days later everything will be okay. I'm not saying that's what the youth are doing, but there are a contingent that are people more my generation that are like that, and I find it very frustrating, even the lack of basic knowledge. Like I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Colleen, but I had that question, which was from somebody who was very skeptical. Well, how do you know what happened 200,000 years ago? So it's kind of good to have the backup science knowledge. But anyway, sorry, frustration.
Thanks, Rosemary. Tanya, do you want to speak next? And then Wendy after that.
Thanks for asking people to speak about this, because, you know, usually I don't want to take up people's time with talking about how I feel, but, or at least I think I don't want to, but I'll say that about 1.5 years ago, when I realized just how the consequences of where we are now, just how bad they likely are going to be in the future, and just how urgent it is that we change our ways, I was pretty traumatized and yeah, I felt very deflated at different points. But at this point, I've kind of accepted now that we are we just live in the time that we live in. So I'm committed to doing what I can. And I think I basically accept that terrible things are probably coming to you know, to many of us, lots of us. And then I think I also have to be careful that I don't at a certain point protect my own happiness or people that I love at the risk of not fighting for everybody, which is a hard thing to negotiate. I think if you're honest, I mean, as much as well, my actions would be fighting for things that are going to benefit everybody. If that's another thing that I think that I try to stay aware of. Yeah.
Thanks, Tanya. Thank you for sharing. Wendy, do you want to speak next? Do you want to share?
Sure. I just feel a lot of anger at this point. I guess I'm angry at the leaders around the world for their failure to educate and inform, so that they've got, if it's a democracy anyway, a voting population that's educated and can understand why they're advocating for certain green and just policies, and stop with this game playing. You know, we just saw some craziness in the PC leader that the carbon tax is not a climate policy. So that whole distract and misdirect drives me nuts. And the other piece is the multinationals that are lying through their teeth, creating a smokescreen and putting a ton of money into lobbying the government daily, multiple times, so that they can get their policies through, which help them make short-term gains. And I have to say, I was really happy that I saw some oil companies recently declare some stranded assets and cancel dividend payments. I think their time has come, but I guess the issue for me is there are solutions. They're here, they're affordable, they're within our reach, and we can create a green and just recovery. We can have a better world for all, and it's affordable and it's cleaner. It just drives me nuts that we can do it, but we need the will to do it.
Thanks, Wendy. Thank you. Yes, I share many of the feelings of the people who have spoken. Valerie, do you want to talk next?
Yeah, I find myself really relating to what the last Tanya and Wendy have said. Yeah, like I think I am in that traumatized state right now. I'm just kind of coming out of, as I said, being a very preoccupied teacher, very micro scale, you know, helping children, and my heart was in the right place, but I wasn't fully cognizant of, you know, how desperate the situation was. I was so narrowly focused, and I feel like that's the case with a lot of people still, obviously. And I have the advantage of being retired, and I have more time. And like, people are just run off their feet and so concerned about so many other things. And then on top of that, the justice aspect of things, like, you know, like this whole issue, Climate Fast is, you know, going about doing some retrofits or helping with that program, and it's so wonderful. And we're recognizing, you know, that we have to be very careful because, you know, you know, where are the retrofits going to be, and who's going to benefit from them, and that kind of thing. So it's just, I don't know, it's just overwhelming. And then on top of that, to have politicians playing games and not really doing what they should be doing is very frustrating as well.
Thanks, Val. I have an S in the chat, but maybe I'll wait. Natsuki, did you want to share?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm kind of frustrated and having anxiety that when I talk to the people around me, and then we don't have that much opportunity to have climate change knowledge in the like a high school or those mandatory education. Because of that, our generation, like adult generation, we don't see the connection between how we live or how we consume like a lot of foods and food waste and or like energy consumption like excessively. Those are more connected to those people who are like mostly affected by climate change in the other part of the world, and also multinational corporations. Those companies already we are incorporated to like buying those things, and we don't really see how we are affecting and then causing those climate change. And we are talking about, oh, climate change is really bad, and then I'm so afraid of it. But actually we don't see how we can change and how we can take an action and how we can create like a social action. So yeah, I think, yeah, someone said earlier, but education for adults and also children is so important in this time, especially COVID-19. Yeah, this is my thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Natsuki, for sharing that. Jay has written in the chat as well. They've said, leaders have failed us as our representatives. They've abandoned us and have misused the trust they've been given. As for those corporations with stranded assets, too bad. Let's hope for more of those. Thank you, Jay. I will share quickly, if that's okay. Yeah, some of my favorite parts of Climate Fast meetings are briefly when we talk about our check-ins or our eco-anxieties and how we feel. It's so easy to get both overwhelmed from the disasters that are human-caused and we see are happening all over the world, and that are happening now, and what it will be like in the future. I do think about the intergenerational justice and thinking generations ahead, and how scary that world could be, and how unfair it is to those in the future, especially when we have the power to do something now. It's very easy to get overwhelmed, and then it's also easy to distract yourself. And it's so important to continually bring up and share your feelings, share your voice, and take an action when possible. And of course, echoing statements from others, being angry that this has been known about for so long and so little has been done, but then also being appreciative that there are individuals and groups and Indigenous peoples who have been working and been fighting this unjust fight for so long, that it makes me feel very hopeful, and then also very stressed as well. Kind of many emotions at once, I think. And yeah, thank you. Thanks. Ray has shared in the chat. However, I don't know if it's a personal share, but it's related to a previous conversation. So maybe that can wait for a minute. Yeah. Is there anyone else that would like to share that hasn't? I think that's it.
Okay, thanks, Mark. So
or Rosemary.
In the sharing, Mark actually sort of started to transition us into it when he was talking about what gives him hope. So the second question is, what do you do to cope with these feelings, if you do anything? Do you have some suggestions for the group of how to better deal with these feelings? And so same thing, just take a moment to think about it, and then you could share your insights with the group, 1 or 2 points, same format, either speak or in the chat. For me, I am reminded that the Earth has been around much longer than humans, and that it will probably continue even if humans don't, and that we came out of the Earth. The Earth has been around for billions of years, and the Earth processes make the conditions for us to exist and to sustain us. And so I don't like thinking, how humans have to save the world. I like to go out in nature. And like when I said that, it doesn't mean you have to go up to Algonquin Park. You can, even if you're, you know, under quarantine COVID, you could look out the window at clouds or something. But in whatever way, get sort of reconnected with nature and realize that the earth is sustaining us. And if we let it, it will work with us. It has great regenerative capabilities. And so it's not so much us saving the earth as finding ways to help the earth save us. And that gives me great hope. That's how I cope with things.
Thanks, Rosemary. Yeah, Colleen has written in the chat that she works with others. She takes walks as well. I feel hopeful. Yun Chun Chan has written that making sure she has a group around her, probably to talk about these issues with, as well as meditation. Tanya says to take action and balance that with engaging in other areas of my life that bring joy and meaning. Thanks. And Lynn would like to share next.
I just wanted to say that it's important to work with the younger generation. I get a lot of energy from Fridays for Future folks and youth, and seeing how youth can bring the issue to the attention of government even more effectively than we can, and we can work together really well. So I think that, plus I think knowing that it's important to take breaks and savor nature, like experience nature, as well as take action on behalf of nature.
Thanks, Lynn. Is there anyone else who would like to share? Val?
I agree with everybody, and I do all those things. But I also really push myself to learn and be informed. And then I'm really trying hard to never miss a chance to speak about my learning to neighbors, friends, family, without being like overbearing. I just, you know, kind of say I'm kind of new at this too, and I'm really concerned, and sort of, I guess I'm learning the art of quiet conversations and hoping that they'll amount to something. And I'm also getting pretty good at writing letters and talking to politicians as well.
Great, thanks, Val. Ray has shared meditation, self-care, create joy and happiness for yourself and for your family and friends. Wendy has shared to vote green and let my Liberal MP know they lost a vote due to an insufficient climate plan.
Well, thank you, everyone. That's very actually helpful, all of that.